Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Brewtubers podcast. We have with us today Sarah from Daft Cat Brewing. Hello, Sarah. How's it going?
I'm good, thanks. You?
And joining us this week is Matt from EVS Bristol Brewing. Is it EVS or is it EVS?
Just EVS. EVS as in Evan. Yeah.
How are you, Matt?
Very good, sir. Very good, sir.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Great to be on the show.
So let's get cracking. So this week it's all about experimental brewing. So I've got a number of questions I'm going to ask the pair of you and Dave if he ever turns up. First of all, I'm going to start with you, Matt. What gives you the inspiration when it comes to getting experimental with your brewing?
To be honest, I think it's actually other home brewers. You can say about commercial brewers or that commercial beers, but I think actually the most inspirational people are other home brewers. I think we're in a position where we can actually do what we want to do with very little expense and without too much investment. So that's kind of what gives me inspiration, seeing what other people do and what other people have done. There's also the seasons. The seasons can be kind of say sort of around about springtime. Blood oranges suddenly come into the supermarket. What are you going to do? I'm going to chuck that in a beer. So I think it kind of comes with that kind of thing. I think walking around the supermarket or walking around the market, you'll see something and think that would go well in a beer, or you just maybe eat piece of food and you think that could possibly work in liquid form. So there's quite a lot of areas I think could be used for sort of inspiration, and that's kind of like what inspires me, if that makes sense.
And same question to you, Sarah. What inspires you when it comes to getting experimental?
It varies. I follow quite a lot of forums online, and I'll see people talking about some recipe they've tried or something they've tried adding, and sometimes some of it you look at it and think, yeah, that's got to be worth a try. I'll give that a go. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything totally out there. You don't have to go and get 25 grams of some fruit no one's ever heard of. Even if it's just trying something you haven't done before, it's still experimental. So quite often I'll try new techniques and things like that rather than just focusing on ingredients.
So for someone like myself who hasn't been brewing particularly long and stays pretty regimented and traditional in what I brew, I'm always working off recipes and just scaling it to my equipment. What kind of things can I do as a regular brewer to be a bit more experimental, if that makes sense?
Matt or me?
Either of you.
Personally, I'd say just try bunging something different then. At some point, whether
simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It really is as simple as that. You're there, you've just had a nice meal, you had something nice with it, and you think, hang on, that might taste good. Just try bunging some of that in, half a bottle of secondary or something. And you don't even have to do it at the brewing stage. A lot of times you can add flavors to a glass. You can have a glass of beer, just try adding a few drops of something to that, see how it works, and you haven't even risked an entire batch of beer.
That's the thing. I've got this sort of same idea with I haven't brewed an imperial stout yet, and that's one of my favourite styles of beer, and I know it's Sarah's as well. But in terms of what I want to do with an imperial stout, I'd love to make 10, not 10 different imperial stouts, but if you could, you would love to make different variations of the same beer. So why not make a large batch of a specific base beer and then create loads of different secondaries and then bottle them and see what happens. You can then still keep the base beer, say you make 20 litres, keep 10 litres and then maybe make 2 secondaries of 5 litres and then see what see what comes about, and you still get to enjoy the beer that you intended originally, but you may be able to sort of think, actually that could work in this style, or that didn't work, and you haven't really completely sacrificed an entire batch, because I know time is precious for a lot of us. So know, you will still get to enjoy the beer that you originally intended, but also have a bit of fun with it as well externally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
So, seeing as how we are just throwing whatever in, Matt, what's the craziest thing you've put in a beer, and has it been successful, or was it a complete write-off?
Not a complete write-off. Nothing's really that crazy. I think you know, I've got unless you're putting, you know, soil in it, I don't think it's really something that I think is that crazy. I think nothing's really off limits within the realms of, you know, something you can eat. I think, you know, whatever it is, there's people who put pumpkin in beer, you know, and that's quite a seasonal favourite. I put jalapenos in a beer because the base beer kind of didn't attenuate as much as I wanted it to, and so I didn't want to just completely get rid of that entire batch. So I roasted some jalapenos. I got some limes in there, and what else did I do? I got some coriander and a bit of salt and pepper, and I just kind of like put them all together into some, you know, sort of like a tincture, and then just added that to a secondary, bottled it, and it tastes better than the original beer. Kind of tastes like nachos with guacamole, but unfortunately a lot of them are gushers, so
Oh no.
you know. But yeah, other things I've done, I did one recently with well, not that long ago, but with sour cherries, which didn't work out quite so well because I left a lot of residual sour cherries kind of in the bottle, so a lot of nucleation points, lots of gushers. But I hear there's other people who may have used sour cherries more successfully in this chat room, so you can probably talk about that if you want.
Okay, well, seeing as I've got no idea who that is, Sarah, could you enlighten us on to who's used sour cherries more successfully?
Probably me. Yeah, I didn't use sour cherries. I used normal cherries, but I used yeast bacteria blend and wild yeast blend to do the souring. So instead of pitching normal yeast, I pitched a blend of microbes from the yeast bed called melange, which has given the beer quite a tart sour flavour, and just fresh cherries from the supermarket went into the primary after 2 weeks. It was on the fruit about 2 weeks, and it's come out quite nice. I'm quite happy with it for a first attempt at a sour beer. I've literally just this second seen Adam at Baldy's Homebrew has just done a review of it, and he seemed to appreciate it as well. Excellent
stuff. Apart from cherries, though, Sarah, what other mad stuff have you shoved in beers?
A bit like Matt. I haven't done anything that's too out there. My worst ever beer was something like I suggested just now. You can try just putting something in a glass of beer so you don't end up wasting whole batch. So I tried some salted caramel syrup, and that was an absolute disaster. But yeah, probably the good old favorites, the tried and tested stuff like cocoa nibs and things like that. I've done quite a few times, and I really like what they give to the beer. So that's always a good one for me. Soak some cocoa nibs in some bourbon or vodka for a week, throw them in the primary.
Cool. So it's not just ingredients where us homebrewers can get experimental. Have either of the pair of you tried out any weird and wonderful brewing techniques?
I did do one batch where I mashed the hops and boiled the grain. So that's a bit different. That was for Berliner Weiss. So mash hopping and then a decoction with the grain. So felt all backwards.
And how'd that work out?
Not too well. I think in that case, I got too many IBUs come through from the mash hopping, and it stopped it souring properly because the yeast blend I was using obviously didn't like that many IBUs in the beer.
And what about you, Matt? Have you done anything weird and wonderful with your techniques?
What haven't I done with my techniques that are weird and wonderful? That are not weird and wonderful? No, I mean, I've sort of been mainly dabbling with no chill, which is kind of like gaining quite a lot of traction. Still not quite got the hold of like how to adjust your IBUs based around no chill brewing, which is basically rather than chilling down at flame out, you just run it into a sanitized container and try and get as much air out as possible, and basically seal it up and turn it on all sides so it sanitizes itself and just let it cool naturally. I still haven't kind of adjusted my brewing technique to make sure the IBUs fit in line with regular brewing. Other things I've done is no boil, which is very much like a technique that is done for like Berliner Weisses and things like that, but I kind of just did it for a regular brew because I had a little bit of grain left and just decided to do just a small 1 gallon brew on the stovetop and see what could happen if you just, instead of going through the whole boiling and chilling process, you just bring it up to pasteurization temperature. You go through the mash to pasteurization temperature and just add your hop tea or something like that and chill it down and add your yeast. So, that didn't kind of turn out as well as I would have liked, and I wouldn't really sort of rush to do it again, but it's something fun to give a go. So, yeah.
Hello, David. How's it going?
Evening. All right.
Good. You can't win them.
I need a new laptop.
So we were just talking about experimental brewing techniques.
Okay.
Matt there was just talking about how he likes to occasionally do a no-boil ale. What about yourself, David? Have you done any crazy techniques?
I've done a few. I suppose the most out there, I did a beer a couple of years back in medieval style. So we didn't do any, there were no hops, it was all, I think I used bog myrtle, yarrow, I used rosemary.
Brew it.
Yeah, and I think I used some wild heather as well, which I picked off the hills here.
Wow.
Nice.
That was interesting. It's no wonder they're all fucking angry back then, I tell you.
Was it actually a good beer then? It's clearly not.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but it was harsh. It was after a couple of pints, your throat went numb. I think if you look at the bog myrtle and the heather, they do have like a medicinal value in anesthetic. So when you put that in a beer, it's going to be good times. But yeah, it was interesting, and of course, I use fresh water. I didn't use water out of the river or anything like that, as they would have done back then. It's probably why they all died of gut rot or something. But it was very interesting. It's probably something I won't do again, but especially the price of that bog myrtle, it was really, really expensive. So I don't think I will do that again. But it was interesting. Some of the techniques I'll use. I'm going to do a porter soon, and that's going to be in traditional style. So it's going to be like a 3 to 4 hour step mash, and you only boil half of it. So you boil half the brew, and then this is what I've read. I don't know how true this is. Somebody might be trying to kill me or something like that. But so you take half the batch, you boil it, and you add it to the rest again. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, generally, if I do experiments like that with ingredients I've never used before, or I can't find other people that I've used, I will sort of do like just do a gallon batch each time, which was is what I should have done with that that medieval brew. But
how much of that did you have at the end?
I got it down. I got it down. But it was a good. So yeah. So in terms of experiments, that was pretty way out there. You know, especially it was a beer with no hops. But there was plenty of grain in there. The grain bill was huge. So
All right.
it was about a kilo grain bill for a 5 gallon for a 23 litre batch. So it was pretty strong.
It sounds pretty strong. So, Sarah, have you ever, or do you ever try to recreate food or other drink flavors when you're being experimental with your brewing?
I haven't, but then again, I say that I've tried to do like a chocolate milkshake stout, but normally it's trying to recreate the flavors of drinks rather than food for me.
What about you, Matt? Have you done or attempted to recreate anything from either the food or drink world in your brewing?
I did the fruitcake barley wine, which was inspired by basic brewing. I implore everyone who's into brewing in any capacity to follow those guys on their podcast and on their channel. Absolutely, inspired me to start brewing. I was kind of reluctant to do it. I was kind of pushed into it by my father-in-law, but it kind of gave me that sort of extra push over the edge to sort of get into brewing, and they sort of do an annual brew of a barley wine, which is inspired by a fruitcake, and it's basically got the entire contents of a fruitcake bar the kind of eggs and flour, plus a base beer. So I've done sort of 2 iterations of that, and that's been relatively good. I think mine is still kind of young, and it was bottled end of November last year, so it's going to take some time. But that's one of them. I've kind of got this idea that came up to me, which I don't think I'll ever go through with, but it's a pastrami sandwich beer.
What style would that?
Oh, God knows, mate. That's why it's kind of like a rye beer. I think it would be like a rye-based beer, but with spices in it, and pastrami, and. But then I thought about dry gherkining my beer and all sorts of crazy shit that you can do. Sorry, crazy stuff that you can do with your beer, and so that one is on the back burner, which will probably be on the back burner for until the day I die, probably. But then G&T, gin and tonic. I've always wanted to do a gin and tonic saison, so use juniper berries, some kind of way in which to get the tonic flavor into a saison would be quite nice. Make it spritzy. Yeah, so there's plenty of ideas that I've got, but I've actually not really gone through with a lot of them for probably good reason.
And finally, David, how about yourself? Have you ever tried to recreate food or drink flavors in your brewing?
Yeah, more times than I care to remember. I think the most successful I had was I did a Bakewell porter. It was a cherry porter with almond essence, and it was really, really good. If I was to do that again, I'd try and finish the beer a little bit high, so it was just a little bit sweeter. I got a back sweet, I suppose, but but it was quite successful. But that's an easy flavour to emulate. It's easy to.
Sounds like.
So as soon as you put the almond essence in, it's going to taste like anything to do with Bakewell or amaretto or anything like that. And the worst one I tried to do was strawberry trifle.
Strawberry trifle.
Yeah.
How did it go?
Not very well. I did a strawberry wheat beer, no hops. Tried to finish it out sweet, and that stage of it was okay. But then I've sort of put it on I put it into secondary and I put sponge biscuits in there.
Quality.
And then it just went downhill from there on. That
Goes all
wasn't very
powdery,
good.
doesn't it?
But I was trying to, what I was trying to do is, I was trying to get it in so the initial beer would just absorb into the sponge at the bottom and then just sit there. And then obviously the beer would rise up. So I put it down low and then kicked about, and it hit a secondary fermentation that I didn't account for that. I should have stopped. I should have put like a stopping agent and I'd stop fermenting because it was going in the keg anyway, so I'd have been forced carbon. But because it hit a secondary, the sponge just sort of just holy shit. And it was just a horrible mess, and that went down the drain. But now I try to just lately my beers, I just try to keep beer as beer. Try not to go way out there. I've had some successful experiments, but that was not one of them. But the cherry bakewell one, I do that again, definitely.
So, Matt, is there anything from the commercial world that also inspires your brewing?
Yes. I think I've shown no sort of. I've never disguised the fact that I absolutely love Buxton Brewery and Omnipollo and their Buxton, their sort of combination where they've sort of done this ice cream series of beers. I think they've done some great things where they've sort of made beers sort of emulating desserts and things like that. They made I think it was Yellow Belly was one great beer which basically contained, well, it didn't contain peanut butter or biscuit, but they made it taste like it contained peanut butter and biscuit. So it was kind of, they can explain it better than I can, but it was basically like a play on all sorts of stuff. But the actual beer was fantastic, and they've done sort of other iterations of that. They did a Sunday version of it with cacao nibs and lactose and all sorts of stuff. But in terms of other beers, probably Black Forest Stranick by Northern Monk, which is someone that is relatively close to you, not too far, but not too close.
Just down the road.
Yeah, just down the road. They do like an imperial stout called Stranick, but they've done like a Black Forest version of it, and that was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, there's so many breweries that make interesting beers that inspire me. I could go on forever. But yeah, and they made a Neapolitan pale ale as well, which was interesting.
That I'm gonna try fairly shortly. I'm looking forward to it.
Get it out now.
No, it's a homebrew show.
It's a really good beer though. It's nice. I wouldn't necessarily call it Neapolitan, but no, it's a nice beer and it's a nice concept. So yeah, there's plenty of beers that kind of interest me in that respect. They're kind of experimental.
And same question to you, Sarah. Is there anything from the commercial world that inspires you to get a bit creative?
There's been a few of them. There's the rhubarb de saison, which I didn't think was that rhubarby, but that actually made me think of doing a rhubarby beer because I do like rhubarb. But most of the stuff that inspires me is dark beer styles, so things like the Buxton Subliminal and beers like that, which are really intense, chocolatey or coffee type porters or stouts. Things like that really, really inspire me to do them because that is far and away my favourite style. Other things that have inspired me, kind of similar to Matt, the Buxton Omnipollo collabs have been great. A shout out to Mad Dog and their Ancho chocolate cheesecake, which contains an unbranded chocolate and cream biscuit. I say unbranded because we don't want to cause any branding issues. But that is so good. I went and bought a keg of the stuff. So yeah, that's inspired me to get a bit more experimental with certain chocolate and milk biscuits.
And David, the same question to you. Are there any commercial beers that have inspired you in your brewing?
A couple. Not in terms of out there beers, but in terms of what styles I like to drink. So I tend to brew towards those. What I do like lately is the the grapefruit and the orange infused IPAs.
Yeah.
That's really sort of tickled my fancy at the minute, so I'm going to give one of them a go. But other than that, I don't drink a lot of commercial beer. I tend to go towards small craft breweries or just small batches rather than the large scale beers. I'm drinking this one now. See that?
All right.
Camera's not very good on this computer. It's a brewery. It's called the Golden Venture, and it's actually the brewery is just down the road in somebody's back room.
Nice.
Those 100 litre batches. It's really nice. It's bottle conditioned and fined, so it's but it's tasty, and the carbonation's nice. Good beer. So those are the sort of things that inspire me. The small scale brewers put the time and effort into producing a good product.
Cool. Right. Final question I'm going to ask all three of you before we move on to the Q&A section. And that question is, I'll start with you, Matt. Do you prefer tried and tested recipes, or do you prefer, getting crazy?
I think my advice is to wing it. For the most part, it's kind of to be honest. Like when I go into like trying to make a beer or making a recipe, I kind of look at try and test recipes, but then try and go for my own spin on it. It might be that it is a spin on it based on what I want to get out of the beer, or it might just be about inventory wise what you've got in the left in from what you've got brewing wise in terms of grain and stuff like that. So you kind of do a bit of tweaking. So yeah, I try and I don't think I've ever done a beer to a recipe. Yeah, I think it's kind of like tailored to your tastes and also what you've got. And there's nothing wrong with doing a clone recipe. In fact, I'm going to be doing hopefully soon. But yeah, I think my sort of thoughts on it is just have a bit of fun and do what you want to do. It's homebrew at the end of the day. You're not trying to replicate a beer every day and make it consistent. It's about making beer that you want to drink and enjoying it. So yeah, just have fun.
Right, same question to you then, Sarah. Do you prefer tried and tested, or do you prefer going mental?
Tried and tested is good, but I never actually manage it. And most of the time I set out with the idea of, right, that worked really well, I'm going to do that. Start the brew day, find out I'm missing one of the ingredients, so the recipe changes there and then. And it's just got to the point now where I don't tend to work from a recipe or to a recipe. I'll just look what I've got and kick off with that. Much like that cherry beer, it was very much a spur of the moment thing. I didn't have the ingredients for one of the Strat beers because it was the Strat Memorial Brew Day it was brewed on. So I knew I had this melange from the yeast bay. So I just knocked something up there and then and went with it. And it's come out quite well.
Cool. And I think, David, you've already kind of answered this, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway. Do you prefer tried and tested recipes, or do you prefer to be a bit more out there with your brewing?
These days, I like to go try and test it. I've done the experimental thing, and I'm not been very successful totally. So, but I'd like to be just to be a beer. I don't want to be too out there. I never bothered with the New England IPA. It just looked wrong, or anything like that. Silly ingredients. I'm just not into it. It's just not something I enjoy, I mean, if I want to eat something like that, I'll go and cook it. If I want to drink something not really fruity, and I'm going to have some fruit juice. Beer to me is, it's about the malt, it's about the hops, not about everything else that you want to throw in between. So, that's just me. That's just personal opinion. I've gone through all different kinds of beers and styles. Yeah, it's like a little dog. Give it a little snack. But yeah, I've gone through all kinds of varieties of beers and stuff like that. And I've tried all the fruit beers and all the wheat beers, and they just don't appeal to me. They're okay if you're just having the one and then move on to something else. But as something I would enjoy, I'd probably stick to the pale ales and the IPAs and stuff like that.
All right, cool. So we've got a question come in from our live chat, and I'll pose it first to Matt. Matt, have you ever used Marmite in a beer?
I wonder who asked you that question. No, but I know of someone who has made beer that accidentally tastes very Marmite-y via potential autolysis. Naming no names. So, but no,
I wonder how that would happen, Sarah. How would you get a beer to taste like that?
You'll let your yeast die and start spewing its guts out into your beer.
Yeah, I've never used that, put it that way. I wouldn't ever rule it out. I think that Marmite, I'm sure, probably could add its own, impart its own flavour into something quite strong and quite dark. Never rule out doing a Marmite Imperial Stout, but I'm not going to do that. I'll just do a regular one next. How does that sound?
Isn't Marmite yeast extract? Or is that
Yeah,
it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Marmite's created by deliberately autolyzing yeast and killing it off, making its sort of cell walls break down. So all the internal parts of the yeast is what gives you that flavour in Marmite. It's quite a savoury flavour, so I don't know that it will work in a beer, but different people like different things, so I'd never say no to it.
I'm not a fan of Marmite, so I don't like it.
well, that answers that question then.
It's not my mate.
I do like Marmite, but I much prefer it on toast and not in a beer.
I'm more of a Bovril man. I like the Bovril spread. That's good.
So this isn't so much a question, just more of a statement from Tony Howard. He said he made a beer about 5 years ago using beef consommé. He says it doesn't taste. He's put it away. And it probably won't taste very good now.
I think
What
that
do we
would probably
think about
I don't think it ever tastes.
go ranted.
Beef consommé is not exactly a pungent flavour anyway, so no matter what you put in a beef consommé, it's going to mask its flavour. When you think of consommé as a soup as such, it's very delicate, very light, but there is a small quantity of salt in there as well, which I'm not quite sure. I know a beer will take a little bit of salt, but I'm not sure how much exactly.
Does it not contain fats as well?
No, consommé is it's basically like just like beef flavoured water, for lack of.
Okay, yeah.
There is no fat in it. There shouldn't be any fat in it anyway, if done correctly.
I haven't been watching enough MasterChef, clearly.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I'm not a fan of anything savoury in beer. It just seems wrong to me personally, but I know other people like their highly bacon. I've heard people literally dry bacon beers and things like that.
Buxton did that, didn't they, with Dragon Tips? They did a beer with Arizona Wilderness, based in Arizona, obviously, and they dry baconed the beer with and they chucked maple syrup in secondary. And it was an imperial stout. So you might as well just done that with smoked malt. You can kind of replicate that without chucking a load of bacon in. But I still kind of like the idea of dry bacon just floating on.
That must be about the only Buxton Imperial Stout I haven't had then, because I love all the Imperial Stouts. I'm going to have to get that one just to try it.
It was good. It was actually a really good beer.
I'm not sure about dry baconing. Just sounds like a waste of bacon, to be truthfully honest.
As I said, use smoke malt. It'll do the same thing. You know, you can get sort of beechwood smoke malt. You can get cherrywood smoke malt. You know, the barista. You can sort of emulate that kind of flavour impact. You know, without actually using real bacon. So, yeah, save that for breakfast.
Sounds good to me.
So,
Tony Yates didn't he do a breakfast stout with and he started did like a dry hop edition of crispy bacon. He did that a while back, and he said it worked out.
That sounds familiar.
But he cooked it so crispy, and you know, he took as much of the fat off as possible. As you know, fat in beer is never good because it kills your head. But he said it was quite. He did like I think he did like an oatmeal breakfast stout, and infused with bacon.
You can also, I think you can make like a tincture with that, with like in vodka or whatever, and you can then freeze it, and then what floats to the top is kind of fat, and you can take that off and then just use the vodka, and then you kind of have again sort of negated, you know, that kind of need, you know, the fat content, so your head retention might go up as well. So that can you tell that I've read a lot of homebrew forums?
There you go. Tony Yates has just confirmed in chat that he did indeed do that. So well remembered.
Yeah. I think I remembered on the subject of experimental brews as well, about 3 or 4 years ago, that you and Mixer Q made a beer using a tin of baked beans. He said that was particularly nasty. So if anybody's trying to do a baked bean beer, don't bother, it's crap.
I've seen Basic Brewing. They've done one with. They did one a couple of years ago with like breakfast cereal for a portion of the mash. I think they made like it was a saison or something, and they used like was it Frankenberry cereal or something, which is like this hideous, like bright pink coloured, like hideousness, you know, you can imagine, but it came out really well. So if that's, you know, I've heard people using bread for a portion, you know, like used bread, you know, like that they're just going to sort of throw away from a bakery. There's breweries that do that.
Yeah,
and that can kind of work.
Bread in place of the yeast. The baking process doesn't kill all the bread, all the yeast off.
Okay.
Yeah, there's actually the toast ale recipe, which is an open source recipe that anyone can download on the web to do that. So if you look up toast ale, if you search that on Google, you'll find the recipe they use.
I'm not going to, but
they did a collaboration with Wiper and True in Bristol with like toast ale and Wiper and True, and they made like a bread and butter pudding ale with like Cointreau soaked raisins or something, and it was pretty nice.
I've used raisins. I did. I soaked. It was actually for that medieval brew that I did. I soaked oak chips and raisins and currants in Scotch whiskey. And I soaked that for about 3 or 4 weeks. And that in itself, you know, the liquor that was left in the soaking was really quite tasty.
You didn't even need to make the beer; you just need to make yourself a little.
From now on, I'm just going to do that. Suck the beer off and just soak the whiskey and drink that. It was all good, but yeah. What I did, I just bought oat chips and I just sort of just put them in the oven for a couple of hours and let that darken, you know, so you get a good, almost like a char and a bit. And I didn't want the burnt flavour, so I just tried to darken it. And I got great English, but it worked out really well. You know, it worked out really well. You just got to make sure you put enough whiskey in there because the wood and the raisins and the currants will absorb it.
Yeah, I know Mad Dog Brew, talking to them again, recently did a beer they call 48 Chapter, which had roasted raisins. That was really nice, so that's something I'm going to try as well.
So, Matt, you were talking earlier about people using breakfast cereals. Have you used any breakfast cereals?
Not yet, but if I wanted to remain regular, I might use like All Bran or something like that.
I had a beer today that was made with cornflakes, and to be honest, I didn't really do anything for me.
Was that Demolen?
No, it was a homebrew.
Okay.
Someone he put basically replaced 25% of his grain bill with cornflakes.
Well, I did see that Demolen did a beer with like pineapple and cornflakes in it, and you think, well, okay, well you could do that, or you could just chuck flake maize in if you want to get like a corn flavour. Like, what are you trying to get out of it? Are you just trying, So I suppose it's kind of like you have to ask yourself, what am I trying to get out of this? Am I just doing this for the lols, or am I doing it for a specific reason? So
that's what what would you expect to get from putting cornflakes in your mash? It's again, it's not a particularly strong flavour, and it'll quickly be overpowered by your hops and your malts anyway.
Yeah,
some people have used it to try and lighten the body and flavour of their beer in the past.
Yeah. So cornflakes, that is just flake maize really, and it's just toasted flake maize. And I think, if anything, it might improve head retention possibly. When you think in terms of adjuncts, it is there to do a specific job, not really to impart a lot of flavour. It's either to increase your body or head retention, or change the colour of your beer. It usually has a job to do other than imparting flavour on the actual brew itself.
So we've had a question. It's not quite on the experimental lines, but I'm going to ask you it anyway. So Dylan Brewing said he's done the Strat Amarillo Smash. He's done it with Vienna and Amarillo. It's been in the bottle for a few weeks, but it still tastes very grassy. He wants to know if that's going to improve with age.
It should do. If it tastes grassy, it's probably because it's just young. I'm not an expert on the flavours, but I've had grassy beers before. They feel a little bit young. They tend to still taste a little bit raw, and age does improve them. Not always, but just going off like nothing's gone wrong and there's no infection of any type. If it tastes grassy, generally to me, it just needs a few age. 3 weeks, and any beer is not going to taste. It's always going to taste a little bit young anyway. You've got to give their flavours time to mellow and blend.
One of the first things to go as you age a beer is hop flavour and aroma. So it will definitely drop off. How much it will drop off varies though. So give it a 3 weeks and try it again, and then see what it's like then, Dilhallam.
So he's got a follow-up question to this. He wants to know how long hop aromas and flavours last in simple beers like the one he's brewed that just was Amarillo and Vienna.
So it's just answered that. It depends on the hop you use and how old the hop is when you use it. It's. But I reckon a good 12 months in the bottle you'd be all right in most beers. It again depends on how much hops you put in, whether you're dry hopped or not. That'll all make a difference to how long the aromas last and the flavour lasts. Again, how pungent or how strong your hop is to start with.
Yeah, basically each hop's got a flavour intensity. The stronger the flavour intensity of the hop, the longer it's going to hang around in the beer before it drops out fully.
You'll find that the bitterness just stays there forever, though.
Yeah.
I've currently got a beer that is far too overly dry hopped. Like it's not overly dry hopped in terms of like grassiness, but I did a 200 gram dry hop on like a 20 liter batch, and actually it's just like it was excessive, and actually it makes it taste almost sweet. And so I think it needs additional time. Sometimes you just need to give it extra time to kind of like balance out the malts and the hop, characters.
Definitely, if you go anywhere over sort of like 100 grams of dry hopping, you will have to wait for that to blend into your beer a little bit, because it will be overpowering. It's gonna, as soon as you open the beer, it's gonna be hops for days. It's gonna totally disguise all the malt flavors. So when it's dry hops, I tend to keep for like big IPAs, big pale ales. It's not something I would do with the smash beer, because the smash beer you want to try and get that malt profile as well. But if you put masses of hops in there, you sort of defeat the object really. And it doesn't matter what malt you use, because you're not going to taste it.
All right, cool. Well, I think we are out of questions, so time for us to plug what we're doing. Matt, have you got anything you'd like to plug?
Honestly, not really, to be honest. Not really. I kind of just go about doing my thing. There's a lot of guys on YouTube. I watch their videos, and I think I wish I was that, had that kind of level of polish to my videos and stuff. I just kind of like from week to week, go about kind of thinking, what can I make? What do I want to drink? And I just kind of post stuff on my channel, and if anyone wants to follow, then fantastic. But yeah, if not, follow these three other fantastic Brewtubers.
What about you, Seth? Have you got anything you'd like to plug?
No, I haven't really got anything going on at the moment. I've still got another 19 odd videos to do in the Beer Fault series, but at the moment I've literally just started the new job, which is eating into a lot of my time, so haven't had much going on. But next weekend it's the Brewtubers Brew Day at the Malt Miller, so expect plenty of people to be posting footage and stuff about that.
Is that going to be a live brew? Are you going to put that on YouTube or?
Yeah, we'll be putting it on YouTube. There's currently, I think it's about 10 of us going. So I'm expecting probably half of us will put some video up about it.
So I've got the smash base that I'm sending down to the Malt Miller and the Brew UK guys. So we're going to hopefully by the end of next week, maybe early into the week after, we're going to have our finalist, and see who the winner is. That'll be so that's what's coming on my channel. Also, I'm still in the middle of doing the clone brews. I have about 4 of those. I've got kits. These all grain kits have come from the Malt Miller as it goes. So they'll be the first 4 videos that I put up, grain to glass videos, so they will take a while before I get them up there. But yeah, a little bit. And don't forget, Black Beer Christmas. It's all open. Go and sign up if you want in.
Maybe.
I think I've already signed up. I'll double check on that.
I haven't actually checked if anybody signed up, to be honest with you. Let it run. I'm going to let it run for another couple of weeks for the registration, and then we'll see what we've got.
Was it a specific style of beer?
So I know some people have signed up. Sorry, go on.
Was it a specific style of beer this time round? Was it
porter? It's a porter. Any kind of porter.
Cool. All right.
We're not going to keep it too strict. It's Christmas after all.
Right, well.
Marmite Porter it is.
Can't wait for that one, can't we?
Marmite Manchego.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Next time we come back, we are going to be doing techniques to shorten your brew day. So look out for that podcast coming up in a couple of weeks. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
All the best.